Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PortaOne webinar about new features in PortaSwitch maintenance releases 122 through 125. As usual, your microphones are muted, but you are at any point in time during our presentation, you are welcome to type your questions in the Q&A window of Zoom. And this webinar is going to be conducted by my colleague Svetlana Melnichuk and myself, Kidik Product Officer. What we are going to cover today are the new features in the aforementioned PortaSwitch maintenance releases. Then Svetlana will cover new developments in PortaPhone and some new exciting things in Mart. And again, this is a tradition. At the end of the webinar, we will have a special offer for you. So please stay tuned. At the end, I will announce what that offer is. So let's jump straight into Porta Billing new features. And my first block of features will be related to mobile services, mobile telecommunications. And the first one is 24-hour bundles. So most of you are probably aware that from the very beginning, when we used to have volume discount plans and we later changed them to bundles and we introduced prepaid mobile bundles, the rule was that no matter how long the period your bundle is active, it always ends at midnight, right? I mean, even if the bundle is activated today, it will still be active only until midnight if it's just a one-day bundle. And with longer periods for bundles like 1 month or 30 days, nobody really cared, right? It doesn't really matter at what hours the bundle ends. But there are some markets, especially in Africa and in Asia, where mobile subscribers are used to purchase bundles which are very short, like 1-day bundle, 3-day bundles, and so on. And in those markets, the competition is very high, and every service provider is basically forced to offer such bundles to their consumers. And what we introduced in the latest maintenance release is basically the ability for prepaid mobile bundles is the ability to specify at which time the validity period ends, or basically at which point the bundle expires. So in prepaid mobile bundles, there is a parameter called lifetime, and it's specified in days. So basically, you set up that the bundle is active for 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, and so on. But now, in addition to that, you can say that whether the bundle expires at midnight, as it used to be before, or it expires at the same time it was activated. So if you have a mobile subscriber who purchases a 1-day bundle right now, I mean, it's 4:05 p.m. in Central Europe. If it's a 1-day bundle, it means that it will expire tomorrow at 4:05. If it's a 3-day bundle, it means that it expires on Saturday at 4:05. So we believe that this feature allows service providers running Porta Billing or PortaSwitch to have competitive bundles and to stay competitive on those markets where bundle for short period of times are a must. The next feature is mostly useful for roaming, although I do see some applications for it in normal mobile operations. But let's cover the roaming case first. So those companies who offer travel SIMs or similar similar packages where you have let's say 10 gigabytes of data and it can be used in 100 or 200 whatever number of countries. There are some countries where competition, I would say, is not that high, and local MNOs charge higher rates for consuming data when your subscribers are roaming in those countries and you connect to their network. And there are some countries which have extremely expensive data, for roaming users. And with this feature, basically what you can do, you can set up a threshold, and basically and you can define a fair usage policy, if you like, that if the user consumes, let's say, 1 gigabyte of data within 1 hour, you would like to inform the user, or you would like to take some action. And the way it works is that you set up a threshold, and when this threshold is reached and it's monitored, the threshold is set either for an hour, like a specific usage per hour, or specific usage per day. If the threshold is reached before the hour is over or the day is over, the system can send, our typical porta-billing notifications, which can be sent over SMS or email. It can send it to a customer, it could send it to billing administrators, or it can also trigger a new ESPF event, the external system provisioning framework, which is used to send events to external systems. So when that event is triggered, it can be passed to some, provisioning platform or service management platform, and that platform then can take an action. It may connect to MNO network and throttle this user data access. It may temporarily disable data access. I mean, it's up to you to define this fair usage policy. But the important thing is that, if, let's say, your subscriber travels to some exotic country, I don't know, an island in Pacific Ocean, like Kiribati, and that roaming charges for data usage are quite high, you can set up this thresholds, and basically you can get early notifications about high usage, and you can take action about it. And generally, this feature is supposed to prevent losses, when roaming subscribers are using internet. Now, the last point in the mobile services configuration is related again to this ESPF. We used to have quite sophisticated set of events related to SIM cards and accounts, and for those developers who were building provisioning modules, the ones that connect to a specific mobile core, they had difficulties to understand, like, okay, so which of these dozen events my application should subscribe to, which events it should receive from PortaBin. So we simplified the events a lot, and now you have just 4 basic events. When the new SIM card is created and assigned to an account, when some parameters of the SIM cards are updated, when the SIM card is replaced on the account, the old one is replaced with the new one, or if the SIM card is deleted from the inventory. So these events can be then configured in ESPF, and our default event sender handler, the one responsible for just sending events over HTTP, can be signed up to one or to all 4 of the simple events. And then, it sends an event to your web application, which takes care of SIM management or subscriber management. And then those applications, the main goal is that those provisional applications, should now be much easier and faster to develop, because, the developer doesn't need to bother with, finding out which specific events are suitable for their event handler and for their provisioning application. Now, the next bunch of features is related to cloud PBX, call center, and generally VoIP. And the first one is transcription of voicemail. I think most of you are aware that we introduced, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we introduced transcription of call recordings. So basically the way it works is that it's a subscription to a Mart module. And right now we have a single module which connects to IBM Whisper and uses that technology, to transcribe audio recordings. The good news is that you don't need another subscription if you would like now to provide transcription services to your customers. transcription services of voicemails, obviously. You don't need any extra subscriptions. It would work through the same module, through the same subscription to IBM Whisper. And whenever a voice message is recorded for a particular extension, it can be sent over for transcription. And that transcription can be either be viewed on the self-care portal, like our Cloud PBX self-care portal, or you can also embed it in your self-care portal if you developed your own, or your customers or end users can set up those transcriptions to be emailed to them. So, when they are on the road or they are in some particular place where they cannot listen to a message, they can just pull up emails and just read who left the message, what is the content of the message. And just like with transcriptions for call recording, this service can be monetized. Basically, there is an additional service in PortaBilling which covers transcriptions, and you can set up a rate in the tariff for transcription, which would be basically charging a customer per minute of voicemail recording. You can also create bundles. Let's say a bundle which includes 100 minutes of call recordings for transcription, or you can also apply a subscription fee. So we hope that this new service there will be some demand among your customers, and it will allow you to generate additional revenue by upselling them this transcription of voicemail. The next one is mostly designed for call centers, call activity reports. It's very typical in call center business to have some sort of analytics or at least reports where the supervisor or administrator of call center can see how specific agents perform or how even the whole ring group performs. So these statistics usually include things like what is the average call duration of an agent or generally in the ring group? What is how many calls they handle during a day or during a shift? How much they are spending wrapping up after the call, how much time they are spending up wrapping up, how much time they are just idle, not answering any calls. So these statistics are very typical for call centers, and we are adding them to Cloud PBX portal. We are in the final stages of testing it. So basically, this report should make your Cloud PBX solution more attractive for call centers. And we hope that, again, you will be able to get more customers by selling them, Cloud PBX, which is running on PortaSwitch and which has those call activity reports available. Now, the next feature is not just for Cloud PBX or call centers. It's generally for VoIP services. And it has to do with texting. You could say that, and it's basically a new technology or a new standard, let's put it this way. At this point, you could say, but hey, texting was available in SIP for decades. Like, why do we need a different standard or different technology? What's the reason for that? And the main challenge with traditional SIP messaging is that when the user types a message, they generally need to finish the message, and in mobile applications or in web applications, you usually need to click a button or tap a button to say that, hey, I'm done writing the message, send it over. And only after that, the message is actually sent to a recipient. And it works perfectly fine for instant messaging, for sending SMS. But there are certain situations where it is not good enough. And those situations are usually some emergency situations, So imagine a situation if there is an intruder in somebody's house, so the person cannot talk on the phone, but they would still like contact emergency services, call police, just they want to type a text instead of talking. And this is where real-time text comes into play. Basically, when they type a message, the major difference is that they don't need to submit that message. As they type, each character is transmitted over the network, and the emergency operator can read the message as it is being typed. So in that situation, even if the person doesn't finish the sentence, or let's imagine the person is not feeling well and is trying to call for an ambulance, and the person, for example, is disabled, so they cannot speak, they can still type a message, and even if they don't finish the message, as long as there is an address in the beginning of the message, the emergency operator can dispatch ambulance or all emergency services to that specified address. I know that there is a regulation in European Union about telecommunication services being accessible, being available for people with disabilities. There is also a new regulation basically brewing in United States about next generation emergency services. So this feature allows you to comply with those new regulations and basically serve all kind of callers on this. In this situation, it's not even a caller; it's a person just asking for emergency services in a chat. Now, the next feature is billing related, and I understand that it might be not very usable in Europe and maybe not even in North America, because in Europe we have VAT, right? And that's a single tax, and the feature is actually for multiple taxes, for those countries where multiple taxes are used. So previously, it was possible to set up multiple taxes for subscriptions. There is a configuration or a module which is called custom taxation in PortaBilling, and using custom taxation, it was possible to say that, hey, apply taxes for user charges or apply specific taxes to subscriptions. The problem was that it's either all subscriptions or none. There was no flexibility there. So with new feature, it's now possible to set up that, there is tax number 1, tax number 2, and you could set it up that tax number 1 is applied only to specific subscriptions, and tax number 2 is applied to all subscriptions, for example, or they just apply to different subscriptions. So the way it's configured is that you set up a tax code, a specific tax code, and within the definition of a tax code, you say that, hey, in this tax code, we want to apply 20% tax, the first tax, to subscription, to the full subscription fee. And then we also want to apply the second tax, but only to half of the subscription fee, to 50% of subscription fee, because our subscription covers multiple services. And according to the regulation, that this tax is applicable only to one service of two. So if the fee is split up evenly, like 50% for each service, you could say that tax number 2 is applied only to the half of subscription fee. So you set up those tax code, and then basically for every subscription, you can choose which tax code to use. So basically, this way you can set up different taxation rules for different subscriptions. And generally, multiple taxes work in a way that, a single base amount, that subscription fee, is used to calculate every tax. But there are some exceptions. There are some countries with a bit unusual rules where the second tax is applied not only to a subscription fee, but to subscription fee plus the first tax. Yeah, so the basis for the second tax is everything which was calculated before. And PortaBilling supports both of those modes. So we hope, in those countries where multiple taxes are used, it will allow to set up flexible taxation for subscription charges. Now, the next one is the redesign of the web interface, of administrator web interface. The concept of the existing admin interface was introduced almost 10 years ago. I remember the first prototypes. They were presented in 2016. Over the years, I've heard several complaints, not just myself, but our team heard or received several complaints about that administrator interface. One of the complaints was that, when you need to open specific information, especially in objects like customer, account, objects which have a lot of information, the existing web interface requires you to do many clicks. For example, if you want to change, to add customer individuals, like more people who can access self-care portal, you had to go to the web self-care configuration. It was basically opening, clicking here in the menu, opening one panel, then in the panel you click another menu, one more panel opens, and then finally you have a menu item customer individual, and then you have the final menu where you can, the final panel where you can manage customer individuals. So basically, the general complaint was that it takes too many clicks to reach most of the information in such big objects like customer account. And this is the main thing we tried to deal with, the main complaint we tried to deal with here in customer page. Basically, right now, the menu on the left is just a single level menu. It doesn't have any submenus. Yeah, so everything which is in the customer is organized into this new menu. Every menu opens a page, basically, or a panel, if you like, which takes the whole horizontal space. So there are no more narrow, those narrow panels, small panels with everything stuffed into those panels. Now it uses the whole width of your screen. In objects like customer account, you'll get tabs. So this is basically like the second level of the menu. But the tabs are better than what we used to have because, again, the tab uses all horizontal space available. And then the information is organized into those cards, right? Here we have service features on those cards and with some additional, each service feature with some additional settings. But basically, all information is organized into those cards. Those cards are arranged here in 2 columns. That's a default layout. And that is for minimal supported resolution. If your monitor supports higher resolutions, you may end up with 3 columns of these cards or even 4 columns on these cards in resolutions like 4K. What it gives you is that basically now navigation is simplified. You don't need to go through multiple levels. You have a lot of information visible right on the page. And, there is always a default tab being open. Whenever you go into service configuration, you get the default tab open. So there is always some information accessible on the screen. So that was one thing which we tried to tackle with this redesigned web interface. The second general complaint was that, in many places we have tables, with lists of customers, accounts, XDRs, calls, you name it. And in many places, when those tables have multiple columns, there was not enough horizontal space, and you ended up with some sort of horizontal scrolling, which was very, very annoying and very inconvenient to use, according to at least some of the users that I spoke to. So what we try to change here, wherever the list is presented or the table is presented, we change the search panel, which used to be here on the left, into a much smaller, much more compact panel, like here. So the basic search parameters are presented right here, and you can launch search using those basic search filters. And all additional filters are hidden under this more button. So when you click it, you get, those less frequently used parameters for search. And this way, we were able to utilize all horizontal space available. And right now, all pages that were redesigned don't have a horizontal scroller by default. So, when you open a table in its default view with default columns, and, you don't resize the columns, it fits on the page. Only if you, resize the columns, make some of them wider, or if you add more columns to the table, you may end up with horizontal scroller. But again, the limit is basically your screen resolution. It's not some artificial limit that we have on our pages. So we hope that with these changes, you will enjoy working with PortaBilling web interface much more than before. And right now we have customer account page and also pages of reseller, distributor, and representative redesign, because all these pages use a lot of common source code. So we had to do it in one go. Also, subscriptions have already been redesigned. We are currently working on products, on bundles, and tariffs were slightly touched when we implemented CLI and CLD-based billing, but we are finalizing the redesign of tariffs as well. So, eventually, I don't know, over the next year, maybe 2 years, we will redesign this way the whole porta-billing interface. Step by step, we will cover all the pages, all the entities which are present in porta-billing. Now, the last point about PortaSwitch is that we introduced an AI chat on the administrator web interface. The idea was that, you do have our beautiful documentation on docsporta1.com. You can use Google search to find the relevant piece of information, again, on our documentation portal, on our website. But we thought that AI chat could really speed up looking or finding specific information for you. So it's just a normal chat window on porta-billing web interface where you can chat with AI. The way it works is that we loaded all documentation for MR124 and now for MR125 into a special database called RAG database. That's basically a vector database designed for or optimized for searches of text information. And then when you type a question in the chat box, what it does, it basically, LLM basically connects to the RAG database, runs a search, and synthesizes the search the found text into a coherent, human readable answer. So you can use that AI chat to basically, if you have any questions about PortaSwitch, you can ask AI and get some answers which are based on our documentation. You can refine your questions. So basically, it's not just like a transactional, like your general chat GPT. It is like an agent. It keeps a session information, and you can basically refine your question. You can ask additional questions. It's all done within a single session, and it also keeps the history of your session. So later on, if you had a conversation with AI and you got the information you wanted, but later on you want to find some additional information, you can always go back to your previous session and continue from the point where you left off. This feature comes at no extra cost to you. The only requirement is to have an active PortaCare subscription, which I'm pretty sure all of you who have joined this webinar have. So there is no extra cost for you. We do impose a fair usage policy because, every request to LLM, every request to the database, to the documentation, it will be an extra cost for PortaOne. So there is a fair usage policy. If you have tomorrow some new porta-billing administrator and they decide to ask like hundreds of questions every day, we may throttle down the usage of this feature. And with that said, I'm passing microphone to Svetlana, and she will cover new features in PortaPhone and new things in add-on Mart.
Hello, everyone. Let's talk about the latest PortaPhone updates. As you may remember from our previous webinar, we introduced pop-up notification for web dialer, and also we added transfer support to the web widget. And since then, our team hasn't slowed down, and today I'm excited to show you a new set of enhancements that take PortaPhone even further. So let's start with the application. The first update is voicemail box. It's something many of your customers have been waiting for. Now users don't need to dial voicemail number or jump into another tool. All voice messages are right inside the PortaPhone. They can listen to them, replay, mark messages heard, delete them. Everything is synced with PortaSwitch. So basically, right now, this voicemail, they're feeling like a natural part of the application. And next, we added system notifications. This gives you, as a service provider, an easy way to communicate directly with users inside the softphone. So what you can send: important updates, service announcements, welcome messages, promos, Anything you want to share, it will be shown in a dedicated screen, and there is a history, so users don't miss anything. They can check it there on this separate tab. And then another valuable improvement is caller ID selection. As you know, more and more users work with several numbers. It can be personal, business numbers, support lines, DIDs for different projects. Now they can choose which identity to use before making a call. It's convenient, it's professional, and it opens new service options for providers as well. And finally, I'm also excited to announce that the web dialer now supports attendant transfer. Agents can speak with the person they are transferring the call before completing the transfer. They can check availability, give context, and make sure the handoff is smooth. This significantly improves the customer experience, and the feature is already available in the latest web dialer version. If you want to enable these updates, just request the latest PortaPhone build from your support engineer. They will help with everything. And moving on, let's take a look at new models available in add-on Mart. So first, the new service provisioning system, or an SPS. It's a cloud-based tool that makes it easy to push subscriber data from PortaBilling into external systems. Instead of building custom middleware or working with complicated low-code platforms, you can use an SPS to sync data in real time with mobile core elements or IPTV systems. It listens for events from PortaBilling, adds missing details, and sends everything to systems like HSS or PCRF. There is a ready-made connector to WTL Mobile Core, and developers can adapt it to other platforms if needed. The main idea: faster integration, less custom code, and smoother activation and updates. And the second module is invoice preview. It lets your team see what customers' invoice will look like before the billing period ends. It does not affect real billing or balances, it's just a preview. This helps finance and support teams double-check charges, some discounts, taxes, rules. It's especially useful when something changed mid-month, or new subscription added, some upgrades, cancellations. Every preview is clearly marked, so you always know it's not a real invoice, it's just a preview. And as a result, fewer surprises, fewer disputes, and more transparency for your customers. And next, please. This release, as usual, we add more Polycom IP phones models for auto provisioning together with programmable keys, so you can find them via Mart. Now, back to Mike.
Thank you, Svetlana. So we are almost done with all the new features that we wanted to present to you today. This is definitely not a complete list. We just, these are just highlights, the most interesting, the biggest features. But I have one last new thing which I would like to mention. It's definitely not the list tool that we are discussing today, but let me explain what it is. So PortaOne AI Datalink is basically a tool to collect information or collect data from your PortaBilling, which you can then use to make decisions about your products, about your customers, about how to develop your business, basically. This is our second attempt to build an analytics or business intelligence tool. Some of you may remember, approximately 5 years ago, we introduced PortaBI. And the challenge or the problem with that solution was that we tried to build like a complete business intelligence solution. And we decided to go with Tableau as a BI tool at that point. But for some of our customers, setting up or creating those reports, forecasts, and stuff were too complicated. Some of our customers provided feedback that that the tools that we built is not powerful enough. So we basically dropped that project. However, now we believe there is a better way to do it, and especially with a new player on the market. I mean AI. Not on the market, sorry, new player in the field of business intelligence. That's AI. We decided to give it another go. So the way Datalink works is that it collects portability data and sends it to the cloud. Obviously, it strips all personal information, so you don't have to worry about like GDPR violation or things like that. So it sends the data to the cloud. In the cloud, that data is prepared and transformed into specific data sets, and those data sets are optimized for analytics, or are basically analytics ready. Some data sets are related to cost and revenue and profitability of your services. Some data sets are related to trends among your customers, like which products are more popular than the others and things like that, which packages are more popular. Some data sets are designed more in a way to handle or to see the not a progress, but to see a lifetime of particular customer. Like if you have some very important customer who generates a lot of revenue, you want to keep track of how they are performing. Do they use more services, less services? Have they started calling in additional destinations, or maybe they drop traffic on some specific destinations, things like that. So these data sets are sitting in BigQuery, and now the good news is that when you have all that prepared data in BigQuery, you can go one of two ways. You can go more traditional way, or as our CEO called old school way, connecting a traditional BI tool of your choice. So you could use PortaBI, Tableau, whatever you prefer, connect it to BigQuery and run traditional reports, forecasts, and all that stuff. However, what we see more and more being used in the market is use of AI agents. So basically, you can take your generic LLM like ChatGPT or Claude, connect it to that data warehouse running BigQuery, and have AI do analytics for you. Okay, so that is a new approach, a modern approach, and we believe that there is a right approach in the future to keep tabs on your key business metrics. And this is where our special offer that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar comes into play. Basically, if you sign up to AI Datalink by the end of this year, you will get 6 months of this service for free. And we will also arrange a workshop with one of our data analytics experts who would discuss with you what is the key information for your business. How can you extract it? Which tool is better to be used for running reports or forecasts that you require for your business and things like that. So it's all included in our special offer. Please contact your account manager or any sales manager, and let's get the ball rolling. So that's all for today about new stuff that we've developed in the last basically half a year. Let me briefly show you and mention which tools we are working on right now. The aim is to deliver all of this feature by the end of winter. Of course, some of the features will be delivered earlier, some of the features will be delivered later, but the whole list should be done by the end of winter. So we are finalizing our integration for voice AI agents. If you have if you have additional questions about any of these features, just type your question into the Q&A box and I'll answer them, because the next thing we will have is a Q&A session. So simple forwarding IVR. We used to have an IVR to manage call forwarding. It was too complicated. It had a lot of extra features which are not needed. So we now introduce a simpler IVR. Also for United States, the emergency calls, one of the big players in the market is obviously Bandwidth, and we are doing integration with Bandwidth for emergency calls. Then for call queues, we have a new features where basically the user may drop out of the queue and the system will later initiate a callback to that caller. And then we introduce also TLS support for SIP trunks and forwarded calls. We already have TLS support for SIP calls in our system, but it doesn't work for all call scenarios. So with this feature, it should be more. And as usual, I encourage you to discuss your business ideas. If you want to launch new services or you have some idea, maybe it's not directly related to PortaSwitch. Still, please do contact your customer success manager, and let's have a discussion, and maybe we can help you with your new ideas, and maybe we can develop specific features for your business needs. So yeah, if you have any questions about these features, just type them into Q&A, and let's have our Q&A session. So this is a summary of what Svetlana and I covered today. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. But I'll start with a question which I had to answer multiple times before, and they are related to this new service provisioning system, an SPS, which is now available in Mart. Basically, the question, if I was to boil it down to the short version, is why do we need an SPS? You had your PortaOne workflows where we could integrate with it's a low-code platform or no-code platform in some cases to do the integration with third-party system. Why do we need a new platform? Does it replace PortaOne workflows? Does it work in parallel? What is the difference? So basically, an SPS it doesn't replace, first of all, our built-in ESPF part of Porta billing. It is an addition to ESPF. It works on top of ESPF, okay? Just like PortaOne workflows, they can also hook up to ESPF and get events from ESPF. So it's now the fundamental difference between an SPS and workflows is that an SPS is great when you simply need to push information from Porta billing into some third-party system. The best example is provisioning of mobile subscribers into a mobile core, provisioning them into HSS, into PCRF, assigning the proper SIM card, the data flow on PCRF, and things like that. That is one application. Also provisioning, for example, accounts with the channel packages into IPTV platform. Provisioning if a customer is created or updated in Porta billing, NSPS could be used to provision this new information into some CRM platform, for example. So NSPS is good when it's like, one piece of Porta billing information being pushed into one or even multiple systems across the board, other systems that the business uses. But it doesn't cover sophisticated logic. For sophisticated logic, when you have some business rules, when you have conditions that if information has this thing, you should do this. But if the information has these things, you should do something completely different. For that one, workflows is still a much better tool because it allows you to program all the specific logics and all those basically workflows. How should the data flow through different systems and which conditions it should do, what it should do. So that's the fundamental difference between an SPS and workflows. One other thing which I would like to mention, PortaOne workflows is based on Dell Boomi, and Boomi charges us, and we have to charge you, for every connector. So like if you connect to two other business systems that you have in your infrastructure, so those are two extra charges. If you connect it to 4 different systems, you have to pay more for every system that you connect to. With an SPS, there is no such thing. An SPS is purely our development, and in an SPS is available under the flat monthly fee. So no matter if you connect to one system, just mobile core, or you connect it to 5 different systems, it's the same flat monthly fee. Okay, let's see if we have any questions in the Q&A. Oh, just one question. there is a question. Yeah, there is a question about very hot topics these days. That's basically AI agents, voice AI agents. So yes, it is a conversation. The question is like what it is and what is the ATA, right? So let me answer it. So obviously it is a conversational AI agent, right? Which uses some sort of a prompt or instructions or some small knowledge base, things like that, and is able to answer, basic questions from a person. We've done integration with a company called Epiphonica, and the AI agent itself is running in their infrastructure. So basically, PortaSwitch sends a call to Epiphonica, and then the conversation can start. And obviously, your customers will be able to, open web interface of Epiphonica and set up their agents. And that web interface is brandable. So whenever they are configuring the agent, it will look like your system, right, under your brand. Obviously, the solution is brandable. So that's what we've already done. We are already building. We are in the process of building it. As I mentioned, these features that I listed, like the next steps for PortaOne, all of them will be ready by the end of winter. I don't have a specific date right now. I cannot tell you on which specific date it will be released, but it does not depend on maintenance releases of PortaSwitch. That's the good news. Since it's an external service, right, which is invoked from PortaSwitch, it will work with all recent maintenance releases, and you will not have to update your, let's say, PortaSwitch 110 to the latest maintenance release in order to be able to utilize those AI agents. There is a questions about certifications of those AI agents. That's something I'll have to look up. We haven't discussed the certification at all for now. Maybe later we'll get that. So let's take this discussion offline, outside of this webinar, and let's discuss what certification is required and how to proceed with this. My experience with certification is very often certification, it's not always the case, but very often the certification requires to a specific installation of the software to pass that certification rather than the software itself in general. We'll have to take a look in this particular case how it works, but if it's a specific installation, that will have to be something that you will handle. Obviously, if this kind of certification is based on just the software itself as such, not the specific installation, then of course we can take care of that certification. So it looks like we are done for now. There are no more questions, so thank you very much for participating and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.